Imperial hasn't said exactly where the 1,700 layoffs will be.
4 generations of farming could end with Eldon Galloway.
Of the 35 people laid off, 23 are from management.
When New Maid bought the plant from Palm Dairies last year, it said there would be layoffs. It's all part of the company's restructuring efforts.
You're asking about the future of work? What future?
Everyone must realize that they're part of a process of change in the workplace. And it doesn't matter whether you're professional or not, you're going to be affected.
More and more, the news we hear is dominated by economic issues. The reason for this could just be the recession, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that. What we are dealing with right now is a transition to a completely different way of competing as businesses and therefore of working. And to bring that idea out, when I talk about wealth creation,
all wealth comes out of the ground, whether it's agriculture, whether it's mines, whether it's oil, or whether it's timber.
Anything we produce combines 3 inputs. We take a resource, and then applying tools or assets with knowledge, we produce something of value. All 3 of these components will always be present, but historically, they have taken on different levels of importance. For most of history, resources were central, for the simple reason that the tools we had available to us were fairly small hand tools because the only power source we had was ourselves or the animals we'd managed to domesticate. And our knowledge was very limited because we had no way of transmitting knowledge to others. Then, about 200 years ago, we experienced the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution represented a shift in relative importance across these 3 components. Before the revolution, natural resources were more important. After the Industrial Revolution, tools or machines became more important. What we're experiencing today is another transition of the same historic importance. We are now moving from tools being the most important component in business competition to knowledge being the most important component in business competition.
Oh yes, but you have to have the resource to use that knowledge. What would happen if you didn't have paper, or if you didn't have flour, or if you didn't have meat? It doesn't matter what in hell you got in your head.
Today, you need to still have access to resources. You still need tools and other assets. But these are just the price of admission. These just get you into the game. In order to win in business competition, you must compete from what you know. At the moment, we're experiencing the transition to knowledge-based competition. We're experiencing all the discontinuities and disruptions associated with that. People are confused. The old rule books are being thrown out. People are being laid off work. People are having to rethink the way they do work and their careers. Why is it happening today? It's happening, ironically, because one of the tools we've produced was the computer. And the computer allows us to accumulate knowledge, to store it, and to transmit it to others. But a computer cannot know. Only people can know. So the good news is that people will finally be at the center of the wealth creation process. You know, here the key resource was land, here the key resource was money, now the key resource is people. We need to think of ourselves differently. We need to think of ourselves as the key resource in the wealth creation process. We have to understand the technical knowledge we possess. We have to understand our abilities and skills, because we have to take charge of growing those. We have to figure out where they can be best employed.
I like the theory. I just wonder if people in the real world are actually making these kinds of changes.
There's no doubt in my mind that every farmer should be looking at alternative crops. Had we not changed from grain to peas, I would have to say that we would not be farming today. With the present pricing structure of grains, the net return to the farmers, there was basically physically impossible to make ends meet. It's the most important thing that ever happened in our life, and probably the most exciting thing that's ever happened to our farming is the fact that we switched from grain to peas. After 8 years, we've achieved something that we would never have thought of. We started off 8 years ago with 5 acres, and we have expanded our farming operation to about 700 acres. But in the meantime, we have created enough enthusiasm with other farmers that we have now made the largest sale of edible peas ever sold out of Canada, and that has been successfully completed here this week, and the peas are on their way to India. The interesting part about India, Pakistan, the majority of those people are vegetarians, and they need protein source to replace meat, and they will use peas, beans, lentils, and rice. I will say that in trying new crops, new products, they are not always successful. But we learn by other people's mistakes, by our mistakes, and eventually we find the things that are better for us and better for everyone.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
When I inherited this trucking company from my father, I was 21 years old, and I ran into a lot of interesting obstacles. The first and most important one was that I had 7 of my 10 staff members and 24 of my 27 tractors quit. They tried to force me to sell the company to them, which I wouldn't do. So it left me in a position of trying to figure out how to run a business and how to run a trucking company. The second major obstacle I ran into was my bank. My manager wanted me to run a dress shop, not a trucking company. Over the years, one of the things I've done is reduce the number of staff I have. A lot of that was done with job sharing. One of our dispatchers, for example, not only maintains the trailers, but he also handles our safety program. Another dispatcher has the full-time position of both sales and dispatch, which had never been done before. I've overhauled the business in the last 9 years since I took it over from my father by narrowing it down to one type of trailer and one type of commodity. What I found is specialized commodities such as machinery, pipe, the manufactured goods seem to be the most profitable, and those are the ones that we've been targeting to. We're going after a very aggressive marketing plan. Specifically, what we plan on doing is talking to our customers, not just to get one load, but we want 10 of them. How I'm doing this is during my lunch hours, I'm spending time watching videos on sales and marketing.
It's like a storefront office, a legal drop-in center is what it is. Every 2 weeks I come out for half a day, and whoever feels that there's a legal issue that relates to the hospital can come in and review the matter with me. I'd like to be able to tell you that I woke up one morning and had this great idea that I should get out of my office and go out to the offices and workplace of my clients, but I can't really take credit for that. Some of the earlier clients were unions, and they really forced me to break the stereotype and get out of the office. It was not convenient for them to have 5 or 6 people come downtown. It was obvious that I should be going out to their place of work, and that's what I started doing. It seemed that we exchanged a lot more information and had better communication than as if you have someone come into a lawyer's office, which is often a threatening place.
For 17 years, I worked in laboratories. I knew I was restless. I started doing some soul searching, assessing what I liked and what I didn't like. And I knew I enjoyed the scientific process. I enjoyed using my analytical skills, but something was missing. And what was missing was the people contact. Being a volunteer helped me make this career change. While working a lot with community groups, I was able to develop some skills in a very non-threatening environment, fundraising, organizing events, coordinating committees. This gave me the confidence to use these skills, and I was able to transfer them. I now use them in my new career. I am now a financial advisor with Investors Group. The best thing I like about this job is the fact that I can use so many different resources that I possess. I'm able to use my analytical skills, I'm able to use my public relations skills, my organizational skills, and so on. But maybe the best part of it is the fact that I can package them all together and use them on this one job.
Praxis is a company I started in 1980 during the oil boom here in Calgary. Originally started in a traditional office downtown, and then during the downturn decided it was time to work out of my home. It's a social planning company that develops public consultation programs for government, industry, and community organizations. Computerization has allowed us to work with more colleagues in other cities, and for that matter in other countries. We're working on much larger scale projects today than we were several years ago, and we only need a small core staff. In fact, I have 2 people in Edmonton, 2 people in Calgary, and 2 people in Vancouver. Yet, in one of my busiest months last year, we had 28 people working with us, all networked via the computer. And out of this basement, we managed to run 10 projects simultaneously, and as well, we're billing up to $100,000 on a good month. For me, this is the only way I would work, and the only way I will ever work. For some of my staff, it provides them with an incredible opportunity to work. My office manager in Edmonton had twins last September. She left work. I didn't expect to see her back at work 6 months or a year. She came back after 3 months because we installed a computer, a modem, fax machine, and call forwarding from our Edmonton office. And she is working basically full-time again out of her home.
Dealing with your family in the workplace is different than dealing with an employer. I graduated from university with a degree in economics and then was hired by a company just as a regular salaried employee, and then was laid off during the 1982 recession. I came to work with my father at Beef Booster when the company began to grow and expand. We are in the business of producing seed stock beef cattle for commercial ranchers in Western Canada and Montana. The initial decision to work with my father was an easy decision to make. The continuing decision to stay with the company has not always been that easy. One of the most difficult things is that this type of company, the way it developed, was a one-man operation based really on one man's ideas, and the problem then begins of succession. The other young men and women in the organization who will be taking over from their fathers in ranching and feedlot operations face very much similar challenges to the ones that I do.
When I decided to go back to university, it wasn't as if I was dissatisfied with my present career of shoeing, but it was a combination of my back was giving out on me a little bit, and also with the life events, this sort of sparked an interest in psychology. I've really liked going to school. It's been a really enriching experience for me, and for especially for personal growth. But in the same token, you know, I am in the middle of a career change, and so it's a means to an end. My end dream with completing a master's degree is to be able to practice clinical psychology in the area of children and adolescents. I had opportunity because I did have an education that I could just go straight into university with. I didn't have to upgrade or get the entrance requirements for university. I could just start right off into my new career. I'm working at the Calgary Correctional Centre as a volunteer at the present time, and I'm interviewing adult offenders, gathering information for the psychologists there. This is a great way for me to gain experience working in the field of psychology.
Okay, so there are people taking charge of their working lives, making changes, learning.
Let's say you work for a bigger company, though. What does the future hold then?
Safety Boss got its first major international job in the Persian Gulf back in 1983. Recently, after the Gulf War, we were hired, along with some companies from other countries, to extinguish the fires and cap the wells in Kuwait. I think one of the reasons why we did so well in Kuwait was the mobility of our equipment. We were able to go in and set up a lot faster than the other companies using equipment like this fire truck here, rather than stationary pumps. Kuwait was a great learning experience for Safety Boss. When we initially got there, we used our normal methods, and during the duration of the project, we got better and more adept at extinguishing the fires and capping the wells and developing new procedures. Definitely we'll be able to use that new knowledge in the future, and I think in general, the amount of time that it takes to extinguish a blowout is going to be shortened because of it. We're fortunate at Safety Boss to have our services needed internationally. This helps us financially through the ups and downs of the Canadian oil patch.
Individual plant?
Yeah. We have the
This is the first DuPont plant to try out the new team system. The 8-person team was originally set up about a year ago, just before startup. Each person on the crew is responsible for one area of the plant, and we all work together to operate the plant on a 12-hour shift rotation. On a normal day, I would basically concentrate on operating the plant, and also I'm required to keep track of the days that my crew has off, so I schedule training and vacation days. At DuPont, we don't have any managers. What we have is a leadership team, which consists of a group of people who are there to give us assistance and kind of give us guidance. I think that the teamwork system is much better than a hierarchical system, just for the simple fact that you don't have managers or supervisors around. It's a much more relaxed environment, and also you're working with a group of 8 people that helps out a lot in troubleshooting or just getting a problem solved. Without the managers around, the team, we all kind of keep an eye on each other. We all make sure that everybody pulls their own weight and everybody knows what their responsibilities are. And we all take the initiative to get things done and try to help out each other in whatever areas that we can.
Like many people at Technica, my education is in several areas. I have 1 degree in geophysics and a second one in business administration. We provide consulting and training in the geoscience market to customers around the world. Historically, the oil and gas industry in Alberta has developed extremely strong technology. We can now take that technology and export it to the rest of the world. To work in foreign countries, you need a particular set of skills. One of the most important skills is language skills. If you want to have a long-term relationship with a foreign customer, you have to make the effort to speak at least a little of their language. The best thing about working abroad is the cultural experience of working with other people. We get an opportunity to teach them our methods while we learn from applying those methods in their culture. We learn about the limitations of our existing methods, and we expand the limits of our knowledge. Our work is organized into project teams for specific consulting projects. A typical team would consist of geophysicists, geologists, and petrophysicists. We have developed specialized software to allow us to integrate the viewpoints of all those disciplines. By sharing one common data set, we can bring together all those people's expertise into a better interpretation of the data that results in more oil and gas discovered for the number of wells that are drilled.
I started in the lumber business when I was 13 years old, and now well, that'll make it 67 years, I guess, roughly. As I say, years ago, or up into the 70s, you could take a man and put him on a job, and in 3 days he could do it. Well, that's gone by the board. You have to train them now, and you have to pick them that they have an education that you're sure that they can take the training.
The workers we were retraining on the cut-to-length system came from our planer mill and sawmill operations. Our supplier for this equipment advised us that it would be much easier to train people from the beginning in using this Swedish technology rather than try to retrain and break old habits of conventional logging operators.
The training took 6 months. It was a hands-on training right in the machine. It wasn't like going back to school. I kind of enjoy. It was a challenge for me. It was great. The 6 months was, there was a new thing happening every day.
I've seen it go from the crosscut saw and horse logging all the way through until what you see today. It's all, I guess they'll get it more technical, but we've got all the scanners and we've got the computers. I don't know where it'll end up, but it's bound to change, I would think. It has over the years, but there's been more change in the last 10 years than there was in the 50 years before that.
You know, since becoming Minister of Labor, I have seen fundamental changes occurring in the kinds of occupations that are in demand, and the types of skills that workers require, and the nature of relationships between labor and management, and in the workplace itself. A growing number of people are adapting to the new economic pressures we face and taking advantage of new technologies. Individuals, companies, organizations, they're all questioning old assumptions about work and developing new approaches. In a way, they are pioneers, breaking new ground through their experiences, their successes and failures, signaling to the rest of us what the future holds for the work in our lives.
TransMutual has a very exciting future. We have a lot of opportunities.
The finished product shows how the training went. I mean, I seem to be doing my job.
I set my own limits. That's very important to me. For example, I decide what I want to earn and I go out and do it.
Only 8 people are required to run the plant at one time. Together with the unique skills and the knowledge that each person brings to the team, we are able to cover all areas of the plant.
We're making money growing peas. We are very excited about growing peas. Had it not been for peas, we would not be farming today.
Well, if that's the future of work, we're going to do all right.
There's hope.